Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another chapter of Experiencer Interviews. And today we've got another amazing story coming to us from the US. We have Nancy Malacaria on board today. Nancy's lifelong personal contact with alien life is physical and spiritual, educational and progressive. The main representatives of the most highly intelligent, advanced, and evolved races that visit Earth are her closest contacts, her teachers, and her lifelong friends and colleagues. These fine beings are those in charge of the organization of all of Earth's visiting races. Her role with them is part of the multi-world effort to unite our world with our local group of worlds. It is her position and intention to share her knowledge in order to help other humans learn about universal life and the nature of contact between us all. Nancy's lifelong spiritual experiences includes spirits of the departed, spirit guides, and angels who work together with humanity and our galactic neighbors for the same objectives to ensure the survival of our human race. She can answer questions specifically about the 218 alien races that are visiting Earth, their organization here, their common technologies of travel and concealment, their natural abilities, why they come here, and what their intentions are for the human race. For other humans who have contact, she helps facilitate communication and understanding so that they may become more productive in their own roles if they so choose. She can also answer questions about why there is so much confusion on Earth about these subjects and expose the disinformation that rules the human UFO field. Her knowledge of alien life comes from her ongoing personal experiences with the alien races themselves. She does not study or represent the UFO field, she studies and represents the alien races. Hello, everyone. Just before introducing Nancy, I'd like to share with everyone a message that she shared with me not too long ago. So please enjoy.
My name is Nancy Malacaria and my husband's name is Jack. Everything Jack and I know about the organization of alien races of people visiting Earth from their own worlds come directly from these alien races. We have had hundreds of experiences, meetings, and conversations with them. My journals are called The Project at Earth. It was difficult for Jack and me to get used to the alien people and how they do things at first, but we did, and so will you. Our relationship is personal and professional. They all are our friends. There are no bad races visiting Earth or traveling around space because that is impossible. The only bad race around here is ours because of a lot of criminals in charge, and so our race would not be allowed to travel anywhere. It's okay if you don't believe any of what I say yet, but please listen on because we are running out of time. Our world has always been visited by our neighboring races of people, but the truth about them and evidence of them has been aggressively denied and disguised by the leaders of Earth who don't want these races of people to reveal themselves to our citizens. Instead, our leadership generates endless false information in order to make our citizens afraid of anyone from another world, and mistrust anything they may show us. Often, agents of our leadership pose as alien people in order to approach, scare, confuse and otherwise harm certain humans who will spread this damage to others, also exploring their own contact and experiences. The alien people are hunted by our leadership, and so are the humans who befriend them if we draw too much interest. Our leadership is losing control of information about all this now though, as our citizens are waking up now in great numbers every day due to everything that's been going on and falling apart around Earth lately. We are able to share great information across the world instantly now, personally, in real time and unedited. Our leadership of Earth can't stop us from educating one another anymore unless they take away the machines they use to pump all their propaganda into our heads. All of our neighboring races know each other, help each other, share information and materials, and work together on local space and worldly issues. The alien people we meet with are always the specific professionals of each world who travel to their neighboring worlds relatively close by around them, and this creates a reliable network across all of space for all of them to share information. As soon as our human race is ready, we will officially be able to join our local group of worlds and begin to share in all the benefits and protections of our local network. Our friends will show us what we need first, and will watch over us as we begin to advance in our own natural and technological ways. Since our leadership is refusing to invite or even allow our local group of worlds to come to our world and openly reveal themselves, their natures, their abilities, their intentions to us, we have to do it ourselves. Each and every person of our human race on Earth has the same rights and authority to make this request and offer the invitation of friendship to our neighbors. Our leadership of Earth is never going to allow it, but it's not their decision to make for us. And we don't have to do as they tell us about this. What we have to do is take a proactive role in learning all we can from the other races and put that to good use on our own world through our own professions. The sooner we get going on this together, the better. All of the races' worlds that are visiting Earth are working here in their own crews, and all crews are working with every other crew. Each visiting race is operating within this organization, and no other outside race world is visiting at random. There are 218 races visiting Earth, and it is each of their intention to help our race overcome the worst difficulties we are having here at this time. Our organization of visiting races can help us clean our air, water, and food, reduce disease, create and improve treaties among our peoples, unite our countries, improve education, medicine, production, distribution, improve the general quality of physical and mental health and longevity for ourselves and all our animal species, end all need of war, and help us organize all basic needs for all our people. No other race world can come to our world uninvited by us and our local friends, and no other world can take over or impose their will on us no matter how much we need something we don't yet recognize. We can invite them, and we can ask their advice, and we can ask them to help us with things that we need done but can't do ourselves yet, but we have to achieve our own advances. They are already helping as much as they can through individuals and small groups, but so far all efforts have always been threatened by Earth powers. It seems our leadership has grown so incredibly corrupt that they would rather we all suffer and perish than they give up any of their crimes, power, or control so that we may flourish naturally as the wonderful peaceful race we are really meant to be. Certain crucial damages to our world are beyond human ability to repair anymore, and so we are going to need the more knowledgeable and experienced help of the further advanced races. We humans already will not be able to survive for long as a species at this late point. Many of them needed help in their early beginnings too, but not many ever had this kind of professional corruption that we have now. Our visiting friends can see everything that is going on here. Everything. And they only want to help us. All we have to do is ask.
For those who wish to buy Nancy's book, her book can be purchased from various websites and also directly from her if you want a signed copy, I believe. So Nancy, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Nancy, when did your story start? In what year and how did things happen?
On May 12th, 1990, it was a Saturday, and I was at a birthday party with the children, took our children to the birthday party, and Jack was home alone. His mother was home on the second floor in her apartment. And Jack was working outside in the garage, detached garage, cleaning a set of Orientals by hand. And he was seeing a flash of light. A flash, like not in front of him, but from the side or somewhere, and he'd look, and not often, but sometimes our friends or customers would come over. So we thought maybe somebody was stepping up to the doorway and the sun was shining on something on their clothing. Like he couldn't figure out what it was. It was flashing and it kept happening. And it's kind of a long story, all of chapter 1. But each thing that happened in it was very important. So he heard the phone ringing, so he had to get water, so he left the garage and walked up to the house, to the spigot, and got some water. And he went back in again, and the flashing continued. And then there was one more bright flash, and it stayed lit up. So he turned to look, and he saw standing up in the middle of the garage, sort of like a holograph, a beam of light, and it was in the shape of a doorway. And the best way to describe it is if you were in a dark room, there's no light on in the room, and there's a closet, and there's a light on in the closet, and you open the closet door. You can't see anything except the light, the shape of the light. You don't see the frame of the door. You just see the way the light moves and shines as the door opens. So that's what he saw, standing up in the garage. And as he was horrified, mystified, horrified, and standing as it opened all the way, there was a figure standing in this doorway, and it was a silhouette, a shadow silhouette, kind of looked like a man, and he couldn't see any features. His hands weren't doing this like mine are. He was just standing straight. He kind of looked like, look, there was a head shape and a shoulder shape, and then it just went straight down. But on the top of his head, there was a little bump, sort of like if you had a hood on, there'd be like a little bump up here, or a hat, or something there. And the shape of the bump was very particular. And it opened all the way, and it didn't move. It was standing there straight. And poor Jack, nothing like this had ever happened to him before. And he didn't realize it, but he had backed up. And there was only one way out of the garage. And this figure, and this doorway was between it and the only way out. So he had backed up. And he heard a voice, and not with his ears, it was in his mind. And the voice said, "This image is scaring you, so I'm going to make it disappear. But I'm still going to be here, and I'm still going to talk to you." And then in reverse, it closed up. And everything looked normal. And Jack left the garage. His legs were very weak, his knees were weak, his body was in a reaction of fear, and he was controlling it, but it was very difficult. But he did do it, and he walked. He didn't run, he didn't fall, he didn't freak, he didn't scream. He walked and left the garage, came into the house where I'm sitting at the table right now, and he sat down, and he had his head in his hands, and he stayed like that for a little while, thinking about everything, and wondering, what do I do? What was that? You didn't know what to think. I wasn't home. He would have went straight to me, but I wasn't here. And he decided that he was going back out there. And in my book, I wrote why he felt that way. And, a lot more happened before that point. It was really important. And he went back outside, and he went back into the garage, and he finished his work. And while he finished working, the same voice, the same being continued to speak to him in his mind, as loud as, just like you hear my voice right now, not like a thought, not like sometimes when we receive telepathically, it's almost like we have to try to grab it, or we have to try to separate it from the other thoughts in our head. It wasn't like that. It was just like you hear me right now. And the voice told him that there were 30 other worlds concerned for the ecological state of our planet, and that they were not going to let man destroy this planet. or our species. And the voice talked about three things: the trees, the water, and the air, I believe, if I remember right now. See, I told you I probably have to look. And the being finished speaking, same time Jack finished working, and he stepped out of the garage and he was thinking, who do I tell? And he was thinking of going upstairs to tell his mother, see what she would say. And the being said, if you go upstairs and tell your mother about it, she'll humor you, but if you wait for Nancy to get home, she'll understand. But of course, you know, when something devastating is happening to you in the middle of it, you're not thinking. So he wasn't pondering what the being said. He just remembered what the being said, but he still needed to talk to someone. So he went upstairs. The being didn't say, don't tell her. He just said, you know, this is what will happen. Get ready. This is what's going to happen to you when you try to tell your mother, kind of thing, right? So he did. He went upstairs and tried to talk to his mother, but she wasn't really listening. I don't think she noticed the look on his face the way I did when I got home. She wasn't putting it together, you know, and he probably wasn't trying very hard to get her attention. He was like maybe shy about it, maybe trying to see, you know, what if she thinks if I say this? She didn't respond, so he tried another thing, and he wasn't really telling her in a way to make her listen. So she did humor him, and she said something like, are you working with chemicals, you know, or just made, you know, she didn't listen. She was watching TV, I think. So I got home and he started trying to tell me, but it was late. It was dinner time. The kids were tired. They were hungry. I was on a mission to get dinner and get the kids, you know, set up and give them a bath because they're at a birthday party. And, you know, Jack was telling me, and I wasn't really listening at first either. And but he said after a minute or two, he said, Nancy, I'm trying to tell you this, and I was peeling potatoes. You know, I wasn't even looking at him. And he said, something happened. Listen to me. And when I turned around and I looked at his face, I could see that something very important, he was devastated by what happened. He was, I still can't, I don't, you know, I don't think I have the words really. Whatever I wrote exactly in the book, I can't describe his face and what he looked like. And I realized this was really serious. And he told me a little more, and I asked him a little more, and I said, let me get the kids to bed. Everything will be all right. I'll help you figure it out. It's all right. I needed to comfort him a little bit. And we had dinner, and like we always do, and the kids had a bath like we always do, got them into bed like we always do, and then I got out my notebook. I already had plenty of notes in it. It was ongoing journals of it, things that happened with the kids, and I had started journaling when our son was sick, our youngest son, as a way to cope. So I was still journaling. So it was very normal for me to get out my journals and start writing. I said, Jack, start at the beginning. Tell me what happened first, and then next, and we'll write it all down, and then we'll figure it out. So as he started talking to me, I started writing, and he could see that I was writing, so he was being kind of succinct and not choppy like an outline. He was telling me everything, but he was giving me time to keep up. And that process really helped a lot to not be over emotional about it or skip around. You know, we had the place to ourselves, so wrote it all down. And then when he got to what the being looked like, at the end, I asked him to tell me exactly, so I'm drawing it on the paper. It was a simple drawing, and I drew an outline behind it for the size of the doorway. I didn't draw it as a doorway, but to get the size of it compared to the being. And he's watching me draw it. I can draw, he really can't draw that as well. So I was doing it exactly as he was saying to do it. And I was almost done, and I recognized it. I had seen this being, this shape, in my bedroom when I was 4 years old. And it was one of my first experiences of the different ones that I'd had my whole life. And things didn't happen to me all the time. It wasn't always, but it was often enough that it was normal to me. Nobody ever jumped out at me. It wasn't deep. Not everything was deep, but it was, I knew something else was going on around me all the time, around everybody all the time. And once in a while we tap in for various reasons. So when he described this and I drew it and I recognized it, I felt I got an answer to a lifelong mystery. I had always thought someday I'll know, someday I'll know. And now I knew something. I didn't know yet, I didn't know everything yet. And when I was 4 years old, my mother had put me to bed in the bedroom. My sister was still really little. I think she was still in a crib in my parents' room. And the room was very dim. And I was laying in my room and I saw a man in my bedroom. And he was standing a little beyond the foot of my bed. And he wasn't moving, just standing still. And he was standing in front of my closet doorway. And in the dimness, that's what I saw. It's exactly what I saw. The outline of the doorway was dim. And the shape of his body, the shape of what he looked like a man to me. And at that time, it was like 1964, 1965. And you know, people used to visit a lot then. My parents had visitors. And the men wore overcoats and they wore a hat. Everybody did. All the men did. And a lot of times when company came over, my parents would say, put so-and-so's coat on the bed, take his hat, show him where the bathroom is. So we were kind of interactive with the company too. So I just thought this was someone visiting my father. And I don't think that I completely thought that, I just assumed it. I wasn't afraid that there was someone in my room. And I said something to him, who are you? And he didn't answer me. And he still didn't answer me. Do you need something? Or, I don't remember exactly what I said, except who are you? And I asked him 3 or 4 times and he didn't answer me. So I wasn't afraid. He wasn't moving. I couldn't see his face. He didn't look like this. So I went downstairs and I asked my mother, who's that man in my room? And she said, there's no man in your room, of course, right? But there was. And I said, it's a man in my room. And I was only 4 years old. At 4 years old, you don't know yet that your parents don't already know everything before you tell them. Didn't understand why she said there's no man in your room, because there is. And I'm trying to talk to her about it, and she just put me to bed. And here I came back, and she wanted me to go to bed. She's like, go to bed, she's bringing me back up, and I'm going, there's a man in my room. Who is he? and she's not listening really. She knows there's no man in my room, and she brings me back to my room, and I'm looking, and she's looking. I think she turned the light on, and she's going to show me, see, there's no man in your room, and there wasn't. He was gone. And she's like, good night, and gave me another hug and a kiss, and tucked me back in, and did all that, and left me there again. It wasn't dark, but it was very dim. And I laid there thinking, where did he go? And who was he? And why wouldn't my mother believe me? Like, I think that was my first time that I had that conflict. And that conflict and your awareness of it is really important if you want to understand this process of why, the aliens show up to us and then they don't anymore. And that conflict is not productive to the experience. It's not productive to the relationship. So there comes a time when it has to end. But that's jumping way ahead. So I laid there in my room, and this is what solidified it in my mind. I never forgot that that happened. It didn't change much over time. I always remembered it the same way as far as I remember. It was very simple. It didn't morph into anything different. It didn't happen again like that ever again. And so I just gave you the long version of that. I gave Jack the short version, and I said, I recognize this. I've seen this before. And it was the shape of the bump on the head that really struck me. I keenly remembered that. So it made a little thread through everything for me that this is ongoing, that this is important, that this is somehow meaningful, that something important is happening. But still, this was a shock. It was kind of disturbing. It was unsettling. It was like somebody had ripped the rug out from under our lives. Everything was different. And on that first night, we had just begun to realize how different everything is than we think it is. So almost every day, almost every night, this is what we talked about. Sometimes more things happened, more events happened, and they were kind of bizarre. But there was also always this sensation that we were being taken care of, that the way things happened to us was important, and that um, how it affected us was important. I could feel the care in it. Poor Jack, it mostly happened to him. It seemed like it only happened to him. And it took a while to figure out, no, that's not it at all. That's not the way it works at all. So, shortly after that, because I was journaling, I was writing everything down, and I was trying to be succinct, was more than an outline, but trying to capture the events, capture things in order, and trying to keep in mind, how to remember it when I looked back on my notes, so that when I went back, I would be able to get everything out of what I wrote. And I was able to do that. So things just kept on happening. Our dreams and our children, and we started, at first we didn't even know that it was an alien person. Obviously now, of course it was. We didn't know that it was. It crossed our minds, but everything was crossing our mind and whizzing by like, did you think this? You couldn't grasp or really finish a whole thought without thinking something else. It was very difficult. And we still had to work. We still had to clean the house, take care of the kids, but this is all we talked about. Once we were alone, this is what we talked about. And wondering what we would wonder, and then we started to feel this really strong sensation. And to describe that, it was like the room was filled up with jello. Like there was this energy and this feeling. It was more than just a thought, more than just a thought. Like, like if you're talking to someone and you're saying something private and you suddenly realize someone else might be able to hear you, so your consciousness or your awareness like opens up to what else is there, anyone else around, and you kind of lower your voice a little bit, and you come into focus on what you're saying. That sensation would fill up the room, and the sensation was like someone is actually here and they can hear everything we think. They're not just listening to what we say, they're listening to our thoughts. And that sensation became very, very strong, undeniable, as physical as touching yourself. Like, and you could walk away from it and it would lessen a little bit. Like if it was really strong in one room, you could walk into another room to just kind of shake it off a little bit. But it wasn't a scary sensation. It was a sensation of awareness and telepathic channels opening up. And, we learned what that was later, but at the time, it almost felt like we were being drugged. And we didn't think we were being drugged, but in talking about it, we did say, that's what it feels like. Like, oh, like what, this feeling, what is it? It feels so strong. And we quickly realize it's when the beings are close by, or when they're trying to talk to us from a distance, or if there are a lot of different beings in the same place, then it's like a really strong sensation. And we learned that they can control that sensation for us, but not really at first, because there's some tuning that goes on. Plus, when we first meet them, they're giving us a big sensation of what they feel like. So we can, and I describe it like when you eat food, you put food in your mouth and you can taste it, and your whole body can taste the food that's in your mouth. And some foods taste really strong, and some taste kind of like water, and some are pleasant, and some are not so pleasant. And that's what the feeling is like. It's like having a mouthful of a food. So like once you know what something tastes like, you never forget it. You could smell it at a distance and know what that food is and not mistake it for a different food. So when we first meet the alien people, that's what they would do, is they'd give us this big sensation. They would let us feel how strong their telepathy is. They'd open those channels and we would get to know them. We get a vision of what they look like in our minds, usually before we see them physically, usually get a name, or get to have a conversation about something. But I'm going way ahead, but when it was very hard at first to feel that sensation, not knowing what it was. But over time, with our willingness, as difficult as it was, we were very curious, and I had a very deep sensation that this was really important. And Jack and I wanted to know as much as we could. We wanted to find out as much as we could. And we supported each other. And later, of course, we met a lot more people that have experiences, we met a lot of couples later, and we found that they didn't always have that. They had a lot of disbelief, jealousy, um, backstabbing, like like someone else from besides them would talk to one of them away from the other one. And it was, somebody would come between them, between the couple, and then their contact and their awareness would be stunted. They had a hard time each holding up their side of the partnership. As human beings going through something, you need somebody to help you. And that is so difficult with this subject. And it's almost like sexual abuse. When someone is being abused in a private, shameful way, they do that when no one else is around. So then when the victim tries to tell someone else, they only know that person as a wonderful person. So right away there's a disbelief, suspicion, a lot of pressure to listen to what the person, and that's not very different from this subject, where it comes to us trying to tell somebody what happened to them. And of course, I'm sure that everyone listening is in the field somehow. Um, when something happens to you like this, you feel very different from everyone else. It's hard to talk about. You don't understand it yourself. You feel very isolated, and you try to tell someone else and you become more isolated, more ostracized. And then if you go to the bookshelf or you go to a professional in the field, you find out that these are angry creatures who do things to us against our will. We get told all the rotten things they do to us, the sneaky, sinister things they do to us that we don't remember. And we're taught as human beings living in society the way we do day to day, going to school, going to work, growing up in a family, we're taught that the world works this way. We're taught that if you try to tell somebody anything that they didn't witness, they're not going to listen to you. You learn that from when you're a little kid. It's the way we are. We have all this dynamic stuff going on, but we don't have telepathy. We don't have that openly. So when we're suspicious, we're naturally suspicious. You could call that discernment. That's a good word, but it's also suspicion, kind of synonymous. So Jack and I decided we were going to help each other, and we didn't want it to stop. We weren't, it was difficult, but we felt that, wanted to find out what else, and what else. And this was to the great care that our contact was happening in. And I can certainly see how when other people who have contact and their first memory, their first conscious memory, or one of their beginning first memories is waking up on a ship, how scary that must be for that to be the beginning. And then to try to go back and fix that later, to unscare that person so they can listen long enough, and this psychological aspect of it is what you get, what everybody gets. If something happens to you, whatever it is in this life, and then you go to a bookshelf or you go to a professional, you read a book written by a professional on whatever subject it is that happened to you that was so strange, and you find out that that sensation of fear was actually backed up, that you were right to be so afraid. The book doesn't say you're a human being and your instinct is for your body to shut down. You know, your legs are going to give out under your weight, but that doesn't mean that that funny looking person standing there is doing that to you. Like none of the books helped anybody. So I had a deep sensation that I could do that. I could help my husband, I could help my kids, and I felt that I had a unique perspective, and I wanted to protect my perspective by journaling, by capturing all, by capturing every bit of it. And even though I had that sensation, and I can say that in words now, I didn't have those words then. I just had this drive. And it was so interesting, so captivating. It was scary too, but I wanted to hear the rest of the story. Jack wanted to hear the rest of the story. Every encounter, every experience, every dream, every event, every little thing meant something and left us with more questions. So we wanted to see what was going to happen next. We didn't have to. We never felt we had to. So we went through this period of time where many events happened. I think it was about 2 weeks that we started to like instinctually calm down. The roller coaster effect was running out, and I use this analogy a lot too. It's like if you get on a roller coaster for one ride, it's over, they end it before before you were finished, so you'll get back on again and ride it again, right? But it's very exciting, it's so much fun, it's so different, it's captivating, it's scary, it's funny. But now you have to live your life on that roller coaster. Like the feeling is coming back. So now you have to kind of decide, do I get off the roller coaster? Or do I learn how to fry an egg here? I need to change a diaper. But I'm on this roller coaster. And I bring all these people on the roller coaster with me. How am I going to sleep here? And I figured it out. I figured out how to do all that. And I realized that once you realize that this is the way it is, you start to like go with it, you figure it out. So after about 2 weeks, Jack and I both started to calm down, started to ask more of the right questions, took a little more stand for ourselves, not against the aliens, but realizing that we had a part in it. So we started to ask questions and found out that yes, they are alien people. They come from other worlds. They're alive and physical, the same as we are. They're born, males and females. They live in families. They have a lifespan natural to their own races. And that the individual alien people that are visiting Earth are working here. Sort of like if we joined the Peace Corps, we would be joining for a purpose and we would study for our mission. It would be to help others, and it would be like to excuse me. It would be for a purpose, and that would be our mission. We'd be working there. not everybody joins a Peace Corps. And that the individual alien people that are here are set up here, they stay here. They just visit home once or twice a year. And all of the different races that visit, there's a leader of each crew, and each race has several crafts, or normally one largest craft that they travel in, and then they have smaller crafts, several larger ones, depending on how many of the race are visiting. And they take their work here very seriously. And they visit here anyway, because all races visit their neighboring worlds. Professional crews visit their neighboring worlds, and that's the distance is about how far away it would take to get to them and back in a reasonable amount of time. That's how far each advanced world goes out to visit their neighboring worlds. And then depending on how many neighbors they have in that close, they all do it. And this creates a network across all of space. And in this way, we know about each other. We can share some materials. We can share some techniques. Technologies themselves are not openly shared, because every single race develops their own from the beginning. They start on their own, developing their own ways from their beginnings, and other races are not allowed to interfere. The more advanced races are not allowed to interfere with a race that's developing. If you gave them technology beyond what they could develop, it would stunt them. It would not actually help them. So there's a very strict rule of non-interference throughout space. And also, even more important, there's a strict law of peace throughout space. Because if there wasn't, there wouldn't be anybody. Nobody would advance far enough. It would be very dangerous for everyone. And a lot of times, some worlds that are kind of close to each other know about each other, but they don't know about everybody else. And once in a while, a world is developing and they don't know about anybody else. And what they think about everybody else is all wrong. And that's what's happening to us right now on this planet. We're a very, very young planet. We're a young race and a young planet compared to the other races that visit, to almost all the other life. Because we're at the point where we've been developing, and we're just reaching a point of being able to communicate, being able to comprehend advanced subjects and concepts of things. I think the subjects are one thing, because we kind of already have subjects of the things we know about. But concepts are like outside of what we already know. And it's very, very easy for someone on our planet, a human being, of course, on our planet, that already gets this and can now take advantage of everyone else by giving them some information about those concepts, so that if you ever bump into that yourself, you would be scared to death of it, and everyone you know would be scared to death of it, or they wouldn't believe you. And that's the predicament that we're in right now, because our government of Earth absolutely knows that the alien races are here, and they know that they're trying to help, because the alien races have been offering their assistance to our leadership for a very, very long time. And our leadership is absolutely refusing their help. Our leadership only wants what they can get for themselves exclusively, for power, knowledge, materials, whatever they can get from the alien beings. You and I are not like that. It's not everybody on Earth that is preying on everyone else. I can't describe why that happens, but I've seen that my whole life. And I'm convinced, that we're born good. We're good people. We're very naive. We're very loyal. We're dedicated. We're trustworthy. We're giving beings. We're born this way. This is the nature of what we are. But for some reason, some of us see a way to take advantage of others, and then they take that to the hilt, mostly because they can. Because if someone says, oh, I'm hurt, 10 people come running, what do you need? And they'll just believe whatever they're told. And this has been perpetuated in a great way by our leadership. Now, what has been happening for a long time, if you look back through the history of evidence of alien life on our world, the aliens have been here, from the cave drawings and the earliest art that we have. They've always been here, long before we were ever here. So that never started at some point. But what did start is we have worldwide communication, and we have been becoming more intelligent by having experiences and by expanding our awareness to be able to include more concepts. The concepts of time. You don't have to witness it to have a concept of it. The concept of why a race on another world looks like that and we look like this. You can expand your mind to understand how that can happen. We're becoming more intelligent because of it. So we're coming to a point where the need on our world is so dire that our visiting race's jurisdiction is expanding. Our leadership of Earth, the deep state, they're never going to allow the alien races to come here. They're never going to allow true disclosure. They fake it by allowing fake disclosure. Or they'll take something that's obviously true to lead you there, and then they'll spin it and change it to something else. So you only get an inch. And then you get a lot of confusion. And there are a lot of people in the field, there are a lot of agents that are infiltrated through the whole field, and their job is to create confusion. And it's very effective. Here we are, this world, all of us needing help, praying to God for help, many of us having alien experiences, asking the aliens for help, but year after year goes by and they're not helping us. And our government, the deep state, they're never going to give it up. They're hunting the aliens, and they're hunting the people who work with the aliens. It's okay if you have a horror story to tell. It's okay if you're lying and making up grand stories. And I think a lot of us might start out telling stories because we don't know what it is. We don't even know that it's true. We just remember these weird things, or we hear other people in their story and we somehow adopt some of their story with our story, and we're telling things like it's not even true, telling things like it was just a dream. And not everybody had that sensation in the beginning where they started to write things down, capture that, because then it would grow. One thing would happen, and then it would lead to another thing and another thing, and it would continue to grow because I was capturing it. And I realized that there are a lot of people in the field innocently telling things that aren't true. They've adopted other people's feelings for things, their ways of describing things. Not everybody, not everyone's doing that, but it's common. And we are the investigative pool. So when the investigators, who are really professionals, professional deep state investigators, they're watching the pool, they're guarding the pool, and they're stalking the pool, and they're cherry picking what they want everyone to hear, and they're adding confusions. It's impossible for us. It's impossible. In the meantime, our air and our water, education, our genetics, you don't have to be an alien experiencer to realize that things are not going very good on our planet. And the people that are running our planet now have inherited the position they're in. They were bred and born into being in the positions they're in. They were groomed and educated to be who they are today. They don't even know. Who knows what they were told about who the aliens really are? I've heard I've listened to people that sounded very rational, very honest, astute, clear. They're intelligent. They're not emotional. Telling you something, it sounds completely reasonable to me about the aliens. And then there's this wacky thing about, they're trying to steal our planet from us. I don't know how someone can even believe that, because if they wanted the planet, they could just take it. Why is it this long, drawn out, confused? That's not what they do. They're too busy for that. And I just lost my train of thought.
Well, Nancy, in your book, you do talk about meeting other beings. I know we're going to get into the council eventually, but I know that there's an interesting story where you and Jack were taken, though. When you were brought back, for an instance, you forgot about it, but Jack remembered. Could you get into that story?
There were a lot like that. One of the first big ones was near the beginning. We found out they were alien people, meaning they were people from another planet, different planets, each race, different planet. And, we started to calm down about everything. And when we said, well, what about God? Where does God fit in all this? Because Jack and I have always very much believed in God. We were raised Catholic, both of us. And I can't say that we're very good Catholics, but that's the way we practice. We don't practice all the time, but we certainly have a very close, natural, spiritual relationship with God. And now we had to rectify that. So, of course, the aliens were listening. And Jack took a little trip. I think that was the day that he drove through the doorway and landed on Zah's ship. Truck with him. His van was there too. This experience was to show him on a lectern or a podium, there was a book, and it was that race's book of God. And Jack walked right up to it, looked right at it, and flipped through some pages. He couldn't read it, but he could see there was writing. I think initially, he said that he knew when he was standing there what it said. Gleamed it, gleamed it, gleamed it, but he didn't retain what it was. But he knew what the book was, and it was really an awesome thing. So when he told me, he came back and told me, and I'm like, oh, I wanted to see that too. I really wanted to see that too. And honestly, it was frustrating that he would go out, something would happen, and he'd come back and I would write it. And even though I had my experiences too, but they weren't like his. And it took a while to realize why that was, but it's very important. It's very important why that is. So, I was sitting right where I'm sitting right now, and I was reading my Reader's Digest. I was so happy. I loved to read that book. I got it was brand new. I was so happy. I'm sitting here reading it. I think the kids must have been asleep because I had a few minutes to sit there. Yeah. And Jack was working out in the garage doing his rugs. And he came in the back door and he said, you want to see the aliens? I think that's what he said. You want to go on Zah's ship? And I went, yeah. And I got up to go around the table to meet him. And that's all I remember. The next thing I remember, I'm sitting at the table with my book. And Jack comes in the door, and he says, you don't remember? You don't remember? And I had these images in my mind, very clear images, very definite images in my mind. But it was like a dream. It looked like a dream. And it was so impossible for it to ever have happened. I wouldn't have thought it was anything but a dream. And my cheeks hurt. My cheeks hurt because I was so happy on the ship. I was so flooded with happiness being there with them, and they're so beautiful. This race is so easy to look at, and the sensation of their telepathy feels nice, and no problem meeting them, that's for sure. And they're small, and they're cute, and they happen to be the most advanced race that visits Earth, too. And my cheeks hurt from smiling. And here I was reading a book. I was going to read my book. But however long I was on the ship, it was long enough for my cheeks to hurt from smiling. And that was a very important experience to learn why it is that happens, how it happens. It didn't happen by accident. It's like the experience itself didn't happen just so that we would see their book. It was to tell us, yeah, we have God too. Yeah, one God. And we asked a lot more questions about all that over time going forward too.
How did you get to the ship? Did you go through the same door that your husband went through?
Well, what happened was, Jack had to tell me later, but Jack was working in the garage and he saw a thin beam of light and he knew it was going to happen. He knew he was about to be taken up on the ship because it had already happened just like that before. So he goes, this time I'm taking Nancy with me. And he ran into the house to try to get me, to bring me with him. And I went, yeah, and I got up to go with him. We stepped out the back hall. Actually, I think I remember this part too. Stepped out into the back hall, yes, and there was a bright flash of light, and that was the last I remembered. But Jack continued to remember from that point. I remember the bright flash of light, I think, unless I'm thinking of a different experience. And I apologize because so many things happened. It was so long ago. It's a good thing I wrote it all down. And Jack remembers fully consciously being on the ship and me being there. And he could tell by my face that even though I was there, I was in a dream state. I was dreamy. Now, I don't know about you, but have you ever been in a dream and you're dreaming it and you wake up inside the dream and you're awake inside the dream and you know that you're in a dream?
Well, that's probably when I was taken just after the shadow being incident. Waking up in the bed, so I knew I was in my bedroom, but really drugged up. But waking up, standing, looking at my feet, wearing hospital robes, I knew something happened, that I was awake. But again, it's a bit like what you described.
Mm-hmm. You can be in two places at once. We all do it all the time, whether we have alien experiences or not. It's the natural progression of our spiritual awareness of what spirit is. And where there's also a great effort being put out for us by ourselves and each other, helping us. Our alien friends are helping us. The angels are helping us. The spirits of the departed are helping us. And the main spirit guides, who are human beings who have died, they're done having lives, or they're not having lives right now, but they are working from the other side. There's a great effort to help our world through this transitional time, and there's kind of a kind of a race between us, all the good guys and all the bad guys, to see who's gonna get there. And I believe it's us. I believe the good guys are gonna do it. But we it's natural for us to be in two places at once. And usually if we're having an experience, it's only that we're aware of it that makes it what we would call an experience to us, because we have other states of consciousness that we are active in at every moment, all the time. But we're only normally well aware of this one. And if some event happens, some soul-shaking thing happens to us, like a loved one dies, we like kind of reach in, that would be the time when if that loved one came back and said, I'm all right, look at me, I'm in the field, look, here's my dog I lost, or I'm with Auntie so and so, or look at my face, look how happy I am. Like, that would be the time for us to reach in and find that, what for someone to gift it to us in those moments. But we don't live that way. We don't live. Some people practice that a lot, but we're all in this point of evolution right now, physically. And we're on our natural progression, what's normal to us as a race. But we need those abilities right now, because if we don't understand these things right now, we're going to miss this opportunity for a lot of us to survive and evolve past it, evolve through it, to get to the other side where we're like, wow, this is the way everything really is. We're suffering right now through this time right now. And we vote and we give people power over us, but we're being tricked. But we voted, and other races have to They have to abide by our decisions. These are our decisions. We would not evolve past them if we didn't make those decisions. If the aliens took over, it would stunt us. We wouldn't evolve, but they'd have a very strict jurisdiction, but within the laws of space that is expanding because it's very important right now. I forget what I was talking about. I'm sorry, I forgot the question you asked
But
me.
let's talk about Tsar. You talked about him earlier. Who is he?
Okay. Um, that was Czar standing in the doorway on the first day.
Oh,
And he told us later that he never looked like that again. He looked that way for me, and he looked that way for Jack. He never showed himself to me like that again. But since then, he has shown himself like that to some other people because they'd already seen my drawing. And he just wanted to say, that's me. So if you were visited if you were visited and someone looked that way, he made himself look that way on purpose so that you would know who it was.
what
Czar's
race is
race,
he? What race is he?
I don't know the name of his race, but his race is the oldest race that visits Earth, and their race from their beginning, you think amoebas, was over 6 billion years ago. And they were born intelligent. They were created already intelligent. And all of us physically, our bodies, the physical matter, like if you scraped off some cells, right? The physical matter of us is made out of our planet. It's made out of our world. We evolved that way. We grew that way. So that's normal and natural for us. Every single world, whatever they look like, it's normal for them. And after you meet a few radically different ones, the next radical different one doesn't scare you anymore. So don't give up. Zaz race is the oldest one that visits Earth. Over 6 billion years evolved, and that's counted in Earth's years so that we can understand how long that is. And since everyone's body is physically made out of their own world, Czar's and his race's bodies are made out of primarily light, also water, and the mineral elements of their world, and they come from a star. Their world is a star. And their bodies exactly fit the star. They are still physically alive. They are still a spirit in a body, the way we understand it. They are still born. They still have a natural lifespan. Their bodies grow old over time, and their bodies give out at the end. They can get sick. They can get hurt, but it's not like we get sick and hurt on Earth. We're dodging bullets all the time. And we've met other beings of light too, other light races, and the light races are just as alien to each other as they are to us. They can't share a world. They can't share an atmosphere either. All of our worlds are vastly different, even the ones that seem like they're a lot alike, like Mars, a lot like Earth. We can't share that. And also I'll put in there too is when you think about it, if you try to add a species to a world, you've now changed that world. And that continues like a can of worms. It continues. You change it, it continues to change. it can never go back again. So they don't do that. If for any reason a race can't be on their world anymore, it is much easier to build something to live in space, like a hotel, as big as you want it. It's easier to do that and less, less destructive, you know. So most worlds, most races of people are physical matter, the way we are. There's no light. Some of them are light races. They have a different kind of intelligence than we do, but they're still people. They're the same kind of being we are, but it includes light. And there's one race that visits Earth, and it's kind of rare, but it's not completely unheard of across all the known races. And this one being that visits Earth, they have a metamorphosis. They are part light, but when they're born, they're not light. When they're born, they're physical the way we are, but then partway through their lives, there's a metamorphosis and they bloom into light.
Wow.
So they are, semantics of it. They are light beings, but that's just the way it is. And that's Bija, BJA, and he's really, really awesome too. He feels very good too.
He's on the council, I believe. Is he?
No.
No?
Bija's not on the council.
Because you've met greys and mantids, I believe.
Could you say that again, please?
Have you met mantids before?
Did you say mantis? Jack and I have witnessed. Jack and I have personally met the beings of 30 worlds, and we have witnessed more, up to 60. That we witnessed them, we saw them at gatherings, but we were not meeting them. They were not for us to meet, but we did witness them, and we were allowed to recall what they looked like. Not like this up close like the rest of them, but we did witness, and that was so that we could see. Some of them are vastly different than this humanoid shape that a lot of them are. But they're still people, they're still alive. And the ones that look like something on our planet are not like that. There's no direct connection. Like if somebody has scales that look like our fish's scales, they're not a fish. There's something else. And the reason for that, I think, is if you let your mind skip ahead a little bit, all of the races in this area are a lot the same. We landed here, if you picture a big explosion, picture an explosion, and the things that land together in one small area compared to the universe is then a lot of us are alike. A lot of us are around the same age. A lot of us shared some of the same stuff flying around. But that doesn't mean that somebody took something from one race and bred with it from another race and produced this. Like, you have to really be really fluid and open with those concepts if you want to understand the nature of the universe. We know so little, so we have to try not to get stuck on the things we're told to think, the way we've just been brought up to think about the way things happen. We have to really let the universe tell us by what we witness. If something looks like a reptile, it's not a reptile. It's not a reptile. And the mantises, they're not insects.
Yeah.
Why they look like that? First of all, psychologically, right on paper, you witness a mantis, a praying mantis, I think you mean, right? A praying mantis. They're really beautiful. They're also really scary. They can bite you and they eat each other's heads or something, right? And they look like that. They look like that. And if you met an alien person that looked kind of like that, if you tried to draw it, you would probably draw it more like a mantis than what it looked like when you saw it. And someone else would say, well, I know what that is, and they draw it, and the snowball thing happens that makes it very easy for people to say that it is an insect. And the more people that agree that it's an insect, the more it's an insect in our minds, which that's nature. I'm not explaining it away. I'm not shaming anybody, but we need to really have a mature look at why we still keep calling it an insect. Can't somebody just talk to it and say, who are you? Where'd you come from? Why do you look like one of our insects? You might not get an answer. It might be like, well, someday you'll figure that out. That happens a lot. But, we need to develop this relationship. And a lot of these things that we believe, we've been taught to believe since we were very young, those things are stopping us. They're preventing us from even seeing the truth, never mind believing it. So, yes, I have seen some beings that look kind of like insects. And we've seen beings that look like reptiles. But in our understanding, they're not insects and they're not reptiles. And we've seen enough different ones to know that if anybody told me something they had seen, I could never say you didn't see that or that's not real. All I can really say is try to get that as accurately as you can. Try to draw it exactly the way you saw it before you let someone else say, oh, I saw that and it looked like this. Try to capture that and then try to talk to them. And let's get this going, because I think that us alien experiencers are going to get our whole species over this hump. And we need to do it soon. We need to get by all this jealousy and backstabbing and exaggerating and stonewalling. We need to get past that. We need to be as accurate as we can. We need to be very forgiving of each other, very forgiving of the people who have given us these horrible preconceived notions. And, there's some forgiveness to do with some of the alien races too, because they weren't all being very nice to us. And a lot of our memories are really true. A lot of our memories of them being careless, hurting us, some of that really did happen, but it was very small compared to the big picture. And one really bad thing that happened is when our deep state, well, the aliens went to the government to try to say, look, we can help you. Why don't you let us help you? They didn't want to. They tried to trick the aliens as if the aliens wouldn't know, right? They tried to trick the aliens, put in a loophole, try to make an agreement, try to trade for something. We'll give you this if you give us this. Well, the Greys, and there were two races of the Greys visiting Earth. They look a lot alike, but one's taller than the other. And you would really have to be clear-headed and not upset to see them and then actually come back from your experience knowing who you saw. Because a lot of different races have that same basic shape. If you came back from an experience that, oh, his face looked like this, his skin was this color, his eyes look like this, he's this tall, from here to here, a lot of them sound like that. And then, if two people have the exact same experience with the same being who said the same thing, they were both there and they both came back separately and drew it and wrote it down, it would sound like two different beings. They wouldn't sound exactly the same. That our perception is different. So if people think that they're having experiences with the Greys, maybe they are, maybe they're not, because the actual Greys were two races. But a lot of them have gray skin. A lot of them are that tall with pointy chin, you know what I mean? So two races of the Greys were taking advantage of humans on Earth. They were coming in. Nobody was stopping them from coming in. And they needed our genetics. And they were abducting people to get that. And the view I have of it is clear. The advanced races that visit Earth told us about this and showed us about this. We met the Greys and talked with them about it. I don't know everything, but I protect what I do know by not letting other people, convince me that's not what happened. I'm sure I don't have it all exactly right. That's okay. I am as loyal to my experiences as I can be. And that's more important than making a mistake. If I have made a mistake in something I was told, or and also, all of our experiences, if Jack and I get something wrong when I'm writing things down, if he doesn't remember it right, or I see something and I'm writing it down, and a couple times I forgot to write something down, so it happened again. It's like the most important part of it happening is capturing it, because if you don't write it down, it might as well not have happened. So the accuracy is very important. If I got something wrong that mattered, if I got something wrong that would make a difference, then they would correct me on it. If I got something wrong that really didn't matter, it was, a slight thing that didn't carry any weight going forward, then they didn't correct me. It wasn't important. In fact, it's very important that I'm not exact, because I'm not God. I can't, I promise you how hard I'm trying, but it's also important for people to see my material, but still look at their own better. Get your own, get your own material. Let mine push you in the right direction, but go find more. Define it for yourself better than I can. That is vital, because all of us make mistakes. We're all trying really hard to do the best we can with this. So the Greys, two races of the Greys. Their face looks, you almost can't tell the difference in their face. You can, but almost can't. And one's taller than the other. And now I'm going to forget.
Well, do they wear bodysuits, or have you seen them naked?
They look naked, but they're not. They're wearing a suit. They're not naked. Um, One of them, when we met him, he had on a robe. He was wearing a robe. And we had already seen him looking naked. But we already knew him. We already knew what he felt like. We already knew we were going to see him again. We already knew what the following conversations were going to be about. We weren't mistaken. And also, the most advanced races that visit Earth are who mine and Jack's main contacts are. And the purpose of our contact was to meet all of these different beings to bring the truth. If they told us one lie or misled us, our trust would break down. They were very careful. If there was something they couldn't show us for some reason, or we asked a question we couldn't know the answer of for some reason, they would tell us, we can't tell you that. Or you can't see that now. Instead of lying to us, and when they made their shape look different than it was for a purpose, because they're so scary looking. But you need to stand there and have a conversation with them. You can if you're freaking out. But if they show you an easier thing to look at first, and you open communication, get used to being around them, then they can show you what they really look like. They're not lying, they're trying. And that whole thought pattern of understanding it, of standing there and trying, of believing in it, and wanting to contribute to it, because they need to talk to us too. Every time they meet a human, the human falls down screaming. What are you going to get from that, right? You have to look at it from both sides. So we trust our information. Anyway, two races of the Greys were using humans. They kept using their own same humans over and over. And they were breeding, they were mixing genetics. They were taking our genetics. And they were not stealing our babies. It looked like they were stealing babies, but they were not stealing babies. You have to be able to see the whole picture. That means you need to stay there long enough and listen long enough, calmly enough to put it together for yourself. I'll tell you the way I understand it, but you need to figure that out yourself. I'm not asking you to just trust me and believe what I say. My work is called The Project at Earth. The aliens called it The Project. I added at Earth. And the project is the organization, and that's a noun and a verb. The organization. It's the beings, it's their intention. It's a project, it's ongoing, and it's also a verb. It's everything they're doing with us. It's ongoing. When Jack and I met the aliens on their first day, not counting what we had witnessed before, because we didn't know what it was before. On May 12th, 1990, on that day, on that day, the being, it was Zar. We learned later that it was an alien, that his name is Zar, Z-A-R, that is his name. And he's the most advanced race that visits Earth, and he is the head of the whole project. That one being is the head of the whole entire project. And at that point, right then, there were 30 worlds that were visiting Earth that were the founding races of the project as the verb, the beginning of organizing. But there were 170 races visiting Earth. And it was 170 races visiting Earth. If you picture that poster that has a flat depiction of our galaxy on it with the spinning arms, and like down near the bottom, I think ours is the second arm, I think. And sorry, I forget now, but if you drew a circle around our planet, you drew a circle around that so that the circle just started to touch in the neighboring two arms, that's where our visiting races come from. There were 170 races visiting Earth, and 30 of them were now organizing the rest. It was now time, based on our world, based on our species, based on the need, and based on our readiness and the necessity for this to happen now. Before that, we didn't have an organization. Before that, all these races could visit. They didn't have bad intentions. If a race has bad intentions, they're not allowed to travel space. It's a law of the universe. I can't break down exactly what would, warrant what's who broke the rules, how they broke the rules. I can't put my finger on that because they're visiting a race whose government is letting them in. The government said, we vote, we have this government, we vote or we don't vote. We vote for one, we get another. The aliens can't control that. That's ours. And our government wants the aliens to come in. These two races of the Greys needed to come in physically, pick up people, bring them on the ship, do what they're doing, and put them back. The government found out about it through government-sponsored and government-infiltrated alien abduction support groups. And, first time I ever heard about aliens, the word alien was synonymous with abduction. Alien abduction. That's what aliens do, Same as like a lot of people are still afraid of snakes because it was a serpent that, made Eve bite the apple and get, blah, blah, blah. But I love snakes. I have had a lot of snakes. They're really nice. So, the government found out about the Greys doing it. So instead of stopping them, they made more support groups to find out who these people are so they could trace the aliens. They could trace the Greys through the people they're abducting. And then they would hold, essentially, these humans are held hostage under threat to force the aliens who need to be with them, need to pick them up, into sharing technologies. But the government didn't want technologies to clean the water or the air, cure diseases, stop breeding diseases, unite our countries, further education, longevity, none of that. The government, I say government, I don't really know exactly who I'm talking about, but it's, they want to force the aliens into sharing things that they can use to have more dominance of the world. And they do. And those things are still going on. But the further advanced races, the 30 worlds, who Jack and I were closest with, continued over time to work with all the other races, give them what they needed, instead of each race trying to collect samples of the ground, trying to meet people, trying to meet human beings here. That is very difficult. And when the aliens approach a person, they can only approach their own related people. That's another important thing. And when that happens, and then that human tells somebody, the government is hunting. They're listening, they're watching, they're following people, they're actively seeking us out. And now that person is in danger. So the alien person has now caused that person to be in danger. But they desperately need to get here and tell us things. They desperately need to try to help us. So the government, because of the way we are, the government could easily trick us, easily fool us, easily scare us. And it's very difficult for the aliens to come in. So the government forced the Greys into trade agreements. And the aliens would never, these two races, and I think some other races too, would never give the government what they wanted. They gave them some things, but would never give them anything that they could use to hurt people or further their agenda. They were just trying to bide time. They were trying to pick up as many of their humans as they could, create as many hybrids as they could over time. And what they would do is mix the cells. They weren't impregnating, they weren't having sex, can't even have that physical contact because of the differences in biology, but they were taking cells, taking eggs and sperm, I guess, and they were, I don't know how, they were creating hybrids that were half and half people, hybrid people. But then they would use the hybrids to mix with their race. Down, 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 or however, I don't know how they did it. I don't know how many times until they would produce their own way, that now their genetics of their race, the way I understand it is that their bodies were not hardy enough. They were evolving beyond. They were having a difficult time evolving on their own. That is my understanding. I don't understand why. I don't understand how. Excuse me. Anyway, the project races. The project was the 30 worlds. The project races stepped in for us and told the two races of the Greys, you can't do this anymore. Your programs are over. You have this amount of time to finish what you're in the middle of, and that's it. You can't do that, can't do this with these people anymore. And you can only use your people that still want to do it. Anyone who doesn't want to do it, you can't pick them up anymore. And the project races oversaw that. One of the races of the Greys could and did comply. And the project races also had offered both races of the Greys other ways to get what they needed without the use of humans, because they needed help with whatever it was. Whatever our genetics did for them, there was another way to get it. Lots of ways, once they were allied with the organization. So one of the races could and did comply, and the other race couldn't or wouldn't, and they could no longer visit Earth. And there were a few other races too that I was not told specifically about, but one of the things that they did was scoop our flesh. They would scoop flesh from, I guess, random people. And there was no one here to stop them from doing it. And our government allowed them to do it. How and why specifically, I wasn't witness to it. That's my understanding of from everything they told me about it. That particular thing, as you can imagine, there are a lot of women who feel that they have a child grown now or whatever that's half alien, and they are the ones, they are in a position to handle that, not me. That's not my area. So I'm only telling you the little bit that I know. That's it. Like, they told me enough that I would have an understanding of it. Excuse me, but that's not my thing. So once it was April 2000. It was the year April 2000, the month and the year, that those hybrid projects were completely ended. That was the amount of time. I have to look up what the time was. That was that amount of time that the project, our visiting races, told the Greys, that's it, that's the end of it. And it was April 2000. And Zah told us, and some of the other alien people, and I think Mera too, and the head of the Greys, because one race joined the project and the other race left, isn't visiting Earth anymore. For the race that joined, the main leader of that race here, visiting here, his name is Mira, Mirra, and he is a valuable, important member of the project. And his hybrid things are over. His race has everything they need, with the help of some humans that work with them. I don't know what they do, but there's no misuse of humans. There's no more use of humans in that way. There's no women hosting babies. That was probably the hardest thing, because as a mother, I can't imagine knowing and seeing it as an alien stole my baby. I can't, I had the good fortune of seeing that from a very outside perspective, and already knowing many of the alien races and knowing what they're doing and what they're about, to have a larger perspective of that. But nothing stops me from seeing how wrong that was, and why did that go on like that? Why did it take that long? But once the project started being formed because of us, because we will go and hold it, somebody help us, why is this happening? We were becoming aware of other life, becoming aware of spirit in general, becoming aware of dimensional things, which are natural and technological, and becoming aware of our position in the cosmos, our position as a race, like just evolving as evolution, and other things too. Because if you meet an angel and you know it's an angel and you're not afraid of the angel, and as an adult especially, with that concept of how is this a being that's here and then it disappears. When those things happen to us now, we don't just like draw a picture of a ship in the sky. We don't just put a big badge on everything shiny. Now we're old enough and mature enough in our evolution to understand those concepts. So that's why it's time for the visiting races to get organized. So, and also there are now 218 races visiting Earth because the other races in our area just they didn't visit yet because of everything that was going on here. We weren't ready. We weren't communicating with them. There was already a lot of confusion here. They didn't need anything from us. They were waiting for all of our visiting races to be organized into one unit, sharing information, sharing the best technologies. They're all very different. And some are really good at speaking with us, and some really suck at it. Some of them are so scary looking, or the sensation of their telepathy, if they just look at you, the sensation of what they're thinking is so terrible to us. Like if you hate liver and you had a mouthful of liver, except that you taste liver and you think, oh my God, it's killing me. It must be the ones that steal our babies. It must be the ones that suck our souls. You can't get by that. How do you get by that? You go, if you had the guts to go to the bookstore, you would find out that's what's true. They're hiding your memories from you because they're actually the demons. So anyway, the race of the Greys that still visits Earth, there's one, but a lot of them have gray skin. They would fit the description if you came back and told it. And they're very important to our race. We're a parent race with them now. We share the hybrid people. And we are going to be linked as friends, as colleagues, as extended family members forever throughout our evolution now. And everyone who is involved in that and was involved in it has their say in it. And I am not saying this to discredit anyone's experiences, what they remember, how they felt about, what happened. But now, and as of April 2000, Miraz race was the last one to join the project. Everyone else was here. The 218 races were here. They're all the ones close enough around us to get here. They all work together. All their activities are open. Nobody's here to steal anything, to take anything. Each person that comes here is a professional of his race or her race. Excuse me. And they're representing their world to us, and they're representing their world and their race to each other. And their world visits the other worlds on the other side. They're part of the network, part of the larger picture. So naturally, I'll tell you right now that we're part of a union of 5 galaxies, and that's 4 galaxies surrounding one galaxy, and our galaxy is one of the surrounding. And in this union area are over 5,200 worlds of advanced races. Like one world, one race. And among those are more races too that are not advanced yet. They're not counted in the union yet. They're not participating in the union yet because they're young. The furthest advanced race I don't want to make a mistake right now. The furthest advanced race in the Union area is 16 billion years evolved, meaning from their beginning, think amoeba, and that's counted in Earth years for our understanding. And they are of light also. And they oversee a lot, but they don't visit Earth. It's too far. All our races got it. They can handle all of it. If they couldn't, if they needed something from a race that far evolved, they could get it. They might not have to come here to do it, but we are completely networked. If we weren't, there wouldn't be anybody here. With the advancement, can you imagine the advancement of 6 billion-year-old race? How, it's hard enough for us to imagine evolving to the next generation the way we're going. We look at all other life in all of the universes as somehow evil and out to get us. Like, that's our first thought, but that has been given to us through education, even through religion, even through demons, through don't talk to the dead, even through Mom, I had a dream. No, you didn't. Or Mom, I saw a being. Oh, that was a dream. Like, whatever. Oh, the way we are being raised, and our deep state is in everything. Yeah. They are deliberately teaching us and raising us in a way that we think they are God. And if we meet somebody else that can say, no, they're not. The deep state wants us to be so afraid of them that we won't even listen to them. And if we do, we can be attacked. And there's no limit to what the deep state will do to shut us up.
Have you ever had contact with agents before from the deep state?
Yes. The last chapter of my book, my first book, ends with the FBI trying to abduct Jack.
A lot of people love these stories about healings. You've shared in the book an interesting story about, I think, a friend of yours that couldn't have children. Could you talk about it? Because I do love positive stories.
Yes, and I'm going to try to be careful because I changed almost everybody's name in my book, and I think I called her Michelle. Pretty sure. I'd have to look in my book to make sure. I'm pretty sure I called her Michelle. And I told you about jurisdiction. That's not a little thing. The jurisdiction is very important. And if a race is going somewhere doing things they're not supposed to do, that race is going to be stopped. You can't do that. And you can't do things blind. There's nobody flying around space, drive-by shootings of planets. It can't happen. That would be like me and you stealing a space shuttle. Plus, we are the way we are because of the way we're being brought up. But the other races aren't brought up the way we are. So the jurisdiction is really important. It's important to understand that the only reason why the alien people visiting Earth from other worlds can interfere in something here is because it interferes with them. Okay? So they have a mission. They are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're doing what everyone knows they're doing. Um, they're allowed to do it. They're supposed to do it. They get support to do it. And if somebody here is directly, deliberately trying to interfere with that, then the aliens can do something about that. Okay? Do you understand what I
Well,
mean?
so what happened with your friend? Was she being was something happening to her because of other ETs?
No, no, but it was within the aliens' jurisdiction to help this lady have her baby, to have her baby, because she's related to them and she's on a mission too. And part of her mission is to be a human here. And part of her mission is to have children by her own choice. And that means that it is within Tsar's mission that if something, not just someone, but something interfering in what she's trying to do, that if he can do anything about it, that he can, depending on what that is. So yes, his race was allowed to give her an operation so that to fix whatever it was that was wrong, that was preventing her from conceiving. I think it was from conceiving. And so that she could. It was conceiving, right? Not carrying.
Yeah.
Because yeah.
I like
Um,
the fact that there was an orb moving around her body, like somebody that the orb actually cared for her,
yeah,
and
that was Tsar.
oh,
It was Tsar. And in Tsar's race, a normal way for them to live, two normal natural ways they look, like a ball of light or a person in light. Person like a humanoid shaped person in light. You mostly see the light, but there's other elements too. I think I said the water and whatever mineral. Um, and usually when they travel, like if they go across the ship, they roll up in a ball and fly across the ship in a ball, and then they land like a person.
well, you've talked
And
about the the council. I really want to talk about the individual members of the council, their names that you've given to me.
all right, I can't remember the order right now. I have
That's
to
all
look
right.
at my. And I made cartoons of my cartoon drawings in that drawing. One side is one side has nicknames and the other side has titles. Their names are titles. And there is a difference between the two sides. And Yarkor is in the middle, and he's the head of the council. And that's our council for our project. Project means organization of visiting life. So for them to call it the project, it wasn't really the title, it just was the project. And then I made it the title because, I brought it to light. And our council is made out of physical matter beings because we're a physical matter planet. So every single world has an organization of visiting races, no matter who. Everything the visiting races do are based on what that planet needs or has or trades or whatever. And every world has a council based on the races that visit. So I like the Blue a lot. The Blue, he was the second alien being that we met. We had really just gotten used to meeting Czar, and then we were meeting blue ones, and that was really hard. But his race lives on Mars, actually inside of Mars. And his race was the one in Communion by Whitley Strieber.
Yes.
And the white is a colleague of the blue. And right now, I do not recall what exactly we were told. It would be in the second book, I guess, about where the white lives, because I don't know if I don't think the white lives on Mars. The blue and the white, they're very close colleagues. It's almost like they're the same race because they work so closely together. I think their history just goes back really far. And I don't know I don't know a lot about the white really. I think there's something because an important point is that everything Jack and I know about the aliens, we learn directly from the aliens. We don't repeat information from outside. We don't adopt anybody's. So it's important that everything they tell us, we can repeat. So there's some things they can't tell us because we can't repeat them. And like if they tell me something, it lands on me a certain way. But if I say it to someone else, it lands on them a different way. And especially in the beginning, it was really important that we understand that when we go to conferences, the things that we're telling everybody are relatively benign. That we don't have government secrets. We're not harboring alien secrets. We're not stirring up a hornet's nest. We're not creating a movement. We're just telling everybody what it looks like, encouraging people to talk to them, and all, because it's not safe out here. It's not safe. So there's things we can't really know about. And also, if we knew certain things, the government could say, well, that's something we're not supposed to know about. And now the aliens have caused that problem. Or the aliens, the government is watching the aliens through us and through all of us. And if the aliens go too far, then we get hurt one way or another.
Let's talk about Dimitri from left to right. Who's Dimitri? Yeah.
Dimitri's my brother. He's my brother. I'm older than he is. He and I used to live together in the same family. We have the same parents. Whenever God made me, it was before I was in life on that world. And Dimitri and I both wanted to work between worlds. Our professions, what we wanted is to work between worlds. When I died, I still wanted to. I didn't die for it. I didn't live for it, but we're all on a mission. We're on many missions. We all have a purpose, many, many purposes, whatever they are. If I worked in the next town, there really wouldn't be much difference in the grand scope of the universes and evolution and spirit and God and everything. So if you think of it in a broad way, it's easier to comprehend. So it was my intention and my desire to be born here on Earth, to work between worlds with my brother, with all the alien races that visit Earth. And of course, I had to discover that, which wasn't easy. And a lot of people are discovering it. And there's a lot of confusion. And when somebody sees something and they think it means something, it's really hard to fix that. It's very hard to fix it. When people work really hard to come to an understanding, they protect that understanding. They don't want to expand it. They don't want someone else to expand it. But that's all right. It doesn't matter. It only matters that we just keep on trying. But anyways, I'll give you this figure. You might want to write it down. Exactly 40 to 42% of the population of Earth is some kind of an alien experiencer. Some kind of an alien experiencer. That means that they are related by spirit to another race. That's 40 to 42% of the entire population of our planet. And the project races keep it at 40 to 42%. The project is thousands of years old. This has been going on thousands of years. I don't know how many thousands. It's not new. It's just new to us. So of the 40 to 42% of alien experiences, they're not all having contact. They don't all have contact. That's another story. Of the 40 to 42%, and that fluctuates between 40 and 42 because of births and deaths. And of the 40 to 42%, 10% of those are directly of alien soul, which means that their first life was on another world in another race before. They're the same soul now. They're still the same soul now. But I don't think I know anyone that remembers that. Like I have some inklings of some things, but if I didn't know what I know, I would have no idea what it meant. I wouldn't, to me, it just means that God is so much greater than any of us can imagine. And the rest of the alien experiencers are our descendants of the 40 to 40 of the 10%, excuse me. 40 to 42% of the population is some kind of alien experiencer, and 10% of those are directly of alien soul, and the rest of us are descendants of the 10%. So in other words, Jack and I both were on a different planet before. He was on Zaz's world, and I was on Dimitri's world. Had a full life there, lived our lives there as them. We were them. We're very happy there. But our next life wasn't going to be on our own world and our own family. We were going to come here by our choice. You have to be born here to work from the inside here, because this planet is so hostile to the other races that we need some people to be born here so that we are related to the aliens, and so that we have some soul memories. We're still the same soul. We know everything inside. We just don't have open access here to it. That's normal for humans. We're not being cloaked. It's just normal at this point in our evolution. Like some of us can try really hard and practice and get more. And there's some things the aliens can do for us to help us be more aware than we can achieve on our own, for the direct purpose of what they're showing us at the time. And like for the rest of the day, there might be some residual of that, kind of walking around looking at things with this higher perspective. for a while, but that's not normal for us in our evolution. It's not, it's not, we're not lacking it. It's just not ours yet. So, and then when Jack and I have children, so our children have inherited through us, through our having them, they've inherited the relationship. They're now related because when your bodies produce a body of a person, your souls also contribute to the soul, to the spirit of the person. That's part of the accumulation. So our children are absolutely allowed by law of space and on Earth, to have contact with alien races. When the alien races contact my children, they're not breaking any laws. And if my children want to have experiences with them, if they want to contribute to this effort, which really that's what it is, they're not hanging around. They're not just coming by for tea. They're working at great risk, and us too, on this mission. And if our children want to contribute to it, they can. However they want to do that, however much risk they want to have.
Have your children ever have also contact with them?
Can you say that again, please?
Can you tell me if your children had contact with them?
Yes. All of our children did. It started when they were little. They were introduced physically with the aliens, to the aliens. They all liked them. And they all have their own relationship with each of our closest alien friends. And as far as we know right now, none of them are working physically the way we are, the way Jack and I are. They're doing their own things, being who they are. They're interested. They like to know about it, but they don't seem driven to take a physical role in it. And most people that work with alien life, the best work they do with them is so secret because it's so dangerous that they can't even know about it. And the reason Jack and I know so much is because of what we do, which is speak publicly. We teach, we travel. Sometimes we go out of body, or often it's out of body, which is easiest to do when we're asleep. It's much easier to do it. And we mostly talk with people individually to help people to be productive in their own roles of whatever they do with alien life. We help them do what they do by giving them a push, giving them a perspective, or we help them learn how to communicate, give them some really good analogies, encourage them, give them some facts, and we, try to let them know how important it is that they would have this huge purpose, but that doesn't really encourage people. It's being a part of a huge purpose that's really encouraging. That's the truth of it. None of us, we all feel good about doing something good, of course. We all feel good about figuring out, oh, I have this really cool ability. I'm going to use it. I'm not afraid of blood. I could cut through flesh if I had to. I think I should be a surgeon because I know I could handle that. I'm really smart. I'm going to do that. And we could feel really good. Or I'm good with animals, and these other people are trying to help these animals and they don't know how to approach them. And I think I could do that. I'm going to feel really good about doing that. Of course, we want that. But with with these things right now going on between our worlds, it's being part of the whole, being part of this important mission that we're all helping each other with. That is um the drive, is to be a part of it. Like some people have said to me so many times, people say, "You're making this up. I can't believe you're just trying to be so important. You just want to feel so special hanging around with aliens." I'm like, wait a minute. You hang around with really, really smart people. It doesn't make you feel smart. It makes you feel dumb. Makes you feel small. Like insignificant. What could I possibly do to help? And I think that when people find out that there is this really big effort and they realize that they could maybe do something to help, even if it's having children. And then when their children say to them, "Mom, who's that man in my room?" And that mother says, "Let's see if we can find out. Well, what did he look like? Let's draw a picture." I saw something like this when I was a kid too, and this is really awesome. I wonder what his name is, because when you do that, that lets the rest of it happen. That opens it up, and it prevents, that village that helps us raise our children. It prevents the village from ruining our children, ruining their opportunity to help in this huge effort. Because if we don't figure this out, if we don't make this happen on our world, we're not going to make it.
Could we
Things are all
now we
things are
could
already so dire, so advanced, that it's too late for us to fix it. We can't fix it on our own. Our government can't fix it. But our visiting races have abilities, they have technologies, they can help us. They can't give us those things, but they could, like, they have ways to clean up our water faster than it could if we just left it alone.
yeah.
They can help unite our countries. They can, and I think it's us alien experiences that are going to demand it.
Could we continue with the different members of the council?
Sure.
Because they're all cute. I want to really get through them. The next one would be Einstein.
Einstein. um, well, that's not his real name. That's his nickname. We met Einstein after we met Dmitri. What? No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. We met Einstein before we met Dmitri. And Einstein's telepathy is like thunder, like an earthquake. That's what it feels like. And it can feel like a little earthquake, it could feel like a little bit of thunder, or it could feel like a lot. And your insides can shake. And also, it can make you feel a little bit sick. Can affect you a little bit in a sick way. And when he would talk to us, because when you speak by telepathy, you project what you want to say to the person. And all of the alien people can, and us too, we can project what we want to say to somebody, but control the sensation that goes with it. So we can hold back how strong the sensation is, but still clearly speak to someone. So like what I was saying, like about liver, if you had a mouthful of liver, when someone comes close to you, you don't want to taste liver, but they can control that so that you never have to experience that again, but you could still tell that it's them. Well, Einstein's race doesn't have that ability. So what he did is he learned, he's the only person in his race known, in his race, he practiced and he learned how to speak human vocally. So he can speak audibly, so he can send his telepathy somewhere else so that he could talk to us, because his effect on us was so overpowering, we were getting sick. Like sick in a way, I can't describe how, sick in a place I never knew I had. Not like a cold, but like,
Mm.
I don't know how.
Wow.
But yeah, and he got his name from somebody um that knows, somebody on Earth, or from his friends. Because he said his friends gave him that name. I don't know if they were humans or alien people actually, but they gave him the nickname Einstein. And we could not pronounce his real name. We don't know it. So, and when he told Jack that, he was sitting in the truck, I believe, in the passenger seat, and he had his arm up on the armrest, and his arm only came to the end of the armrest. He's little, really little. And Jack said, well, that's the name of an Earth. That's a human name. That's the name of our Einstein. And Einstein said, your Einstein is known throughout the galaxy. So Einstein is really, really important to our race, because a lot of the sightings, a lot of the events that have happened on Earth, Roswell, Betty and Bonnie Hill, I want to say another one, but I'm going to hold back because I don't want to make a mistake. But quite a number of the events that, get passed around through the UFO field, through the books and stuff that happened. The government shooting them down, some of them getting stuck here. And, of course, the crash at Roswell, that was Einstein's race. It wasn't his ship. It was his race, beings of his race. And he's very invested, very concerned, and he really wants to help. He's one of the leaders in the help. Everyone on the council, they are, essentially the leaders of all these different things that need to be done.
Let's talk about Christian.
Christian is the project physician. The project physician. His race is so good at being physicians, even though all the alien people are physicians. That's like nothing for them. It's part of their study to come here, or maybe they learned it in kindergarten, I don't know. And but Christian is the project physician, and he gave us our exams. And all alien experiencers, all people who work with the alien races personally with them, we all get exams. And Christian gives Jack and I our exams, and our kids, and our pets too.
Wow.
And they are true professionals of many life forms.
It's beautiful.
And he has nice telepathy. Yes, and he's nice. He's a nice person. And his bedside manner is pretty good.
Okay. Then yeah, there's the blue that you talked about earlier, who's from Mars. Then how about Yarkor? You talked about him briefly.
Yeah, Yakor, his telepathy is very strong. Very, very strong. I wouldn't say it's bad. Doesn't feel bad, but it's very strong and it feels kind of electric. Feels a little bit electric. Like not just staticky. You can get like a static sensation on your arms, like if you're near something. It's kind of like, but it's electric.
Wow.
And he's very intelligent, very specialized, very extreme intelligence. He's very, very serious. When you go to the council, everything has to go through him. If you need to ask a specific question, it would go to the specific person that it's supposed to go to. But you have to give it to Yakor, and then Yakor gives it to him, and then he answers to Yakor, and then Yakor tells you. And he does, in his race, he does not have a way to look. They don't have an appearance. Their appearance is continually fluid. All the other ones have a regular appearance, or a few of them. And some of them also can look like anything they want. They can change whatever they look like into something else if they want, but they all the rest have a normal appearance, whatever it is. And Yakor doesn't have one. And when Jack met him and asked him, I want to see you too. I want to see what you look like. And Yakor said, are you sure you want to see what I look like? And he said, yeah. But then a while later, he just got to where he was going and nothing ever happened. And I think it happened twice. And then later we found out that Jack did see what he looked like, and it didn't go very it didn't go very good. And
Okay, that's funny.
electric.
Yeah, we've got to Zen.
Then, many very important decisions in the whole project are made based on his thinking. That means when there's something to be done, we don't know what to do. Nobody knows what to do, and nobody can handle it good enough. They go to him because his thinking helps everybody else realize things that they couldn't realize. And he is so valuable on the council. And they're all very important. But when he stands in my house, his head almost touches the ceiling. His face really is like the shape that I drew it. He's a scary guy. If you didn't know better, you couldn't handle it if you didn't know better. And he holds his hands up like this. That's the way I drew him, is the way he holds his hand. And his hands are always moving. And he told us his name, which is a title, Zen. And I asked him how to spell it with an X or a Z, and he said it didn't matter. So that it's not important, but it is Zen and it is a title. And we weren't told what the titles mean, except for Zeron. Actually, yeah, they didn't tell us what it meant.
Yeah.
They didn't tell us what Zeron's meant either. I was thinking of something else.
So who is Zeron?
That picture I drew is Zeron Jodan. And Zeron Jodan, his title is Zeron and his name is Jodan. And for some reason, somebody knew that we needed to know his name as part of his title. Zeron Jodan. It still is part of his title, but it differentiates him. And that's because Zeron Jodan died. And before he died in a terrible sudden accident. And before he died, I saw it happen, Jack saw it happen, and some other people saw it happen one way or another. It was a little bit like what you described, where you have this experience or this vision, something happens, and you just know it means something, it stands out. You could take it a step further and say, I think something's going to happen, so I'm going to pay attention. You know, and that's the way it was for me and Jack. We knew something was going to happen. And it did. And it was an accident. He was on his way home to visit his family. He and his whole crew, or most of his crew, because when they go home, some people stay here. Because they're set up almost like if you went to work in China. You would be with a bunch of other people that came with you that worked in China, but if you went home, maybe like at holiday time when everything was shut down, it'd be a good time you go home to visit your family. But some people still stay.
Mhm.
It's just like that. His ship blew up on the way home. Something happened. It was a complete surprise to everyone, even people that had premonitions of it. My premonition was extremely vivid and extremely violent. One of the most vivid and violent premonitions I've ever had. It scared me so much. And it was like a video. It couldn't have, it wasn't like, I couldn't have imagined that. Couldn't have made that up. And then Jack also, I forget if his was before me or after me. I think his was after mine. And when that happened, and then after Zeron died, we talked to Zar about it, and Zar told Jack to count the days from when I'm sorry, I just mixed up a different experience. But I'll finish what I said. Jack had a premonition, it wasn't Zeron, but Jack had a premonition, and then what he had a premonition about happened. So Zar told Jack to count the days that it took from when he had the premonition until when it happened, because that was something special to him. If he knew what his own timing is, then he would better be able to watch things in the future for when things would happen. So that, that was important. He took an opportunity to give us a lesson in that. But yes, someone died. So we got a new council member in his position of his race. It's actually a colleague of his. He was like in the number 2 position anyway, in case something happened to him, happened to the one that was there. But he still had to apply again for it. And then each member of the council had to agree, and so that it was unanimous that he fit that position. So now we just call him Zeron. We were not given his name, I don't think.
Wow.
We weren't given his name.
The
And
next
Zeron is very nice too. They feel very good.
I'm just amazed with all these stories. The next one is K1. Is that how to pronounce
Yeah, K1. K1. He's a funny guy. His really special ability is to move himself running at near light speed. His race, they can move, not like with technology, No, it isn't that. It's physically move themselves. He didn't need to hide in our house. He could just run by. We didn't even see him. And he's a funny guy. He's a great guy. He's a good guy. And I'm trying to remember the way he feels telepathically or how to describe it. He doesn't feel bad. He feels different, but not bad.
Can he travel through
And
like from star to star? Since he's
no, no, if he travels star to star, he uses technology. But right here in the house
okay.
and where he lives, like if he wanted to go downtown, he'd be there without the use of a helicopter or a ship or you just pew dimensional technologies.
So what does he do on the council?
Um, hmm, I don't know. I don't know. Not I can't know that.
Okay. And yeah, the last one would be John. Jan?
Yeah, John,
Jan.
John, John. He is really cute. His telepathy is kind of strong, but not like Einstein. And I remember feeling a little bit dizzy, like and his vibration almost is really high, like um almost like a high note, like it's not doesn't rock you, but it's like a buzz and it's strong. It doesn't really feel very good, not very good, but it feels okay. But he's really good looking. And some of the other aliens, when they want to meet somebody, especially a child, they use his appearance. They morph what they look like so they will look like John. Because John is so cute. And the kids love him.
That's-
And I drew his uniform blank, but he has a phoenix. I think it's a phoenix on his uniform, on the whole top of his uniform. But Jack and I couldn't figure out if the wings were up or down on it. And they weren't telling us. They didn't want to tell us because it would have a different meaning to us than it had to them. They didn't even tell us if it was a phoenix, but we assumed it looks like a phoenix. I still think it was, but they didn't want us to have that information. That's not what we were together for. They didn't want to do that. They didn't want to tell me how to draw him. So they didn't answer me. So if the wings were up, it means one thing. If they're down, it means something else. So I didn't draw it. I left it off. But he has a large bird on his uniform with the wings somewhere.
Could you tell me how they came to you to ask you to take part of this project?
Yes and no. Because the part of us that came here to this planet already knows that. They're colleagues of ours. We do what we came here to do, and they help us do it from that high perspective. On the other hand, we get here and we're human. We're human beings. We're at this point in our evolution, even though we have some innate abilities that they're not at our fingertips. And so they had to introduce themselves to us. And then we go through this rug under our feet, still moving for a few weeks or a few months. You have to like calm down before you can start to figure things out. And then you have to have enough information somehow to make a decision because you don't have to work with them. But if you're going to say no or you're going to say yes, you have to have enough information to at least say, well, I'm not done yet. What about this? Like, you have to be willing to do it. So that part, that initial introduction part, could take some time, depending on a lot of different things. It could take months, it could take years, it could take a few minutes, but it's called Project Willing. That part is like a project in itself, because without that, there's no there's no working together physically. We can only work in higher levels of consciousness through our dream state. Or like right now, you could be sitting right where you're sitting. You can be talking with the alien people right now about somebody or gathering some information. And where you're sitting right now, you're not aware of it. You don't need to be aware of it. You don't want to be aware of it. That's the normal way we are. That's the normal way life is for us anyway. But they came to us, they started showing us these things, as you read in the book, because I wrote everything down. I don't think I left anything out. I think I did leave one thing out, but it was very personal. And it involved the aliens, but I think it was just personal to me. It didn't have to do with all this. And they laid it out for some time, showed us a bunch of stuff, and then they asked us, they said, we need an answer from you guys. And they gave us some time to think about it. And of course, the answer was yes. But in thinking about it, it was to realize our role and to realize that they were going to set up a whole lot of things to happen. Their time, their energy, their dedication, their organization. They were going to set up a whole bunch of stuff for us going forward. Our roles were going to change. And they needed to know from us, and they needed us to know that we were in on it, that they could count on us, that we wanted it too. And yes, let's do as much as we can. That was our decision, was to do as much as we possibly can. And they told us, later too, that there will be times in your life when there's just so much going on in your lives that you're not going to be aware, but you'll always be with us. You'll always be helping. But there'll be times when you can't take part physically, knowing everything, writing it all down and all that. And they introduced us to two people who would help us if something happened and we were unable for some time to be physically productive with everything. So they assured us that if we couldn't handle it, that it would still be taken care of.
Oh.
And that, of course, naturally, you can't do everything all the time. Things happen.
Did we talk about your book briefly? Let me see. It's here you go. Yeah, it's fairly thick, and so those that would like to purchase it, they could purchase it from various spots on the internet.
Bookstores. Yeah.
And
all bookstores.
Now, since I haven't got through it yet, the entirety of the book, but it's a good book. It's a roller coaster ride. You have trouble putting it down, and it's really your story as it unfolds. So yours and Jack's as it unfolds, as it goes. So you're basically there at the same time. So now you've got two other books. Could you briefly talk about what they are?
Okay. The second book is not published yet, and it is a lot like the first book. It's 30 more alien beings. Excuse me, 15 more alien beings, and more, about as many encounters. And the first book is over 18 months, and the second book is over 2 years. And the third book is a teacher, like our seminars and a lot like, the conversation that we had today. And classes that I teach, which I'm not teaching right now, but I will be opening up again.
Could you share with us perhaps a closing statement, or maybe you got another story that you want to share with everyone?
Well, I encourage people to read my book because it helps people to understand it from our perspective, even if you can't believe it. Nobody should just believe things that they don't understand, but you have to stick around long enough to get a really good idea. And if you have alien contact, your alien friends will help you with your contact, and that is the best way. Write everything down, because like if you go to any class, go to any speech, or you take a course in college and they give you a big speech, if you show up without a notebook, how much is that professor going to spend his time? How much can you retain, in what order and everything? If you show up with a notebook and do your best to keep it, then that gives them an opportunity to give you a great deal of information that can't be forgotten or twisted or stolen from you. And I encourage that a great deal. And also it lines it up in your head so that you can think rationally about it, and instead of emotionally, so that you can go on. And once you make friends with the alien people, you never go back. You never be that afraid again. And then they help you meet the others.
Wow.
And I encourage people to read my book. You can send an email to me at nancymalacaria@gmail.com to request it. You can buy my books in any bookstore, of course, but if you buy it directly from me, I will sign it for you. And Jack too.
Which I have one signed right now. So again, thanks for coming on, Nancy. And to those watching today's interview, I hope you enjoyed it. I'm your host, Mr. Gray. More interviews coming up. And again, I'll see you guys next time. So
thank you so much. Thank you.
Hello everyone, this is Mr. Gray, and thanks for watching today's episode. If you are an abductee, contactee, or experiencer, and you believe that your story could help others, please feel free to contact me through my YouTube channel email. When it comes to experiencers, the ET phenomena, and the future, remember, truth will out.